Welcome, everyone, to a Tuesday episode of the Call Sheet Daily Podcast here at the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Kevin Smith. Into week 3 of the NFL preseason, and today's show, as we inch closer to the start of real football. I mean, we're actually really close in the college football world, and we're getting there with the NFL. But today's topic will be on trends that you can expect to see throughout football in 2025. Some of this will be on the field stuff, scheme stuff. Some of this will be betting related, even fashion related. All right, one thing we are here at the Call Sheet, if we are nothing else, we are a fashion conscious podcast, which I'm sure you can tell if you're watching on YouTube at my fashion choices right now. So let's get to it, man. 2024 was interesting because we saw some discernible trends take place throughout the football world. Most notably, fourth downs. I mean, offensive coordinators started going for it on fourth down like it was in their contract, that they had to go for it on fourth down. The analytics people have clearly won over offensive coordinators throughout the football world. They've convinced them that punting the ball away just isn't that smart unless you're backed up deep in your own territory or you're facing fourth and a considerable amount. Going for it's the smarter move. I mean, the analytics people will show you or will tell you that your odds of stopping an opposing offense, particularly with how good the kickers have gotten, when you punt the ball away from anywhere really out beyond your own 35 to 40 yard line, diminish significantly. Like once you cross your own 40, unless you're facing fourth and 12, you go for it. And we saw that really take place in vast quantities throughout football in 2024. And really with pretty good success. I mean, the fourth down conversion rate was up last season, despite even as the attempts were up. So going for it more actually resulted in a higher conversion rate. Another thing we saw in 2024 was average starting field position increase. Most directly linked to the new kickoff rule, whereby if you kick the ball into the end zone for a touchback, opposing offenses got it out the 35-yard line. So you were incentivized to kick it into that landing zone the NFL created between the 0, or the goal line, I should say, and the 20. And the new rules that position the coverage team further up the field doesn't give them the advantage of a running start. And so oftentimes you saw pretty good returns. Average starting field position in the NFL higher than it had been in over 2 decades. So those are just a couple that we saw last season. So what can we expect to see this season, 2025? So here are 5 things that I think we're going to see. Some of it, again, football related. Some of it just kind of related to the broader game in some way, shape, or form. All right. I think we're going to see more conservative play calling on third downs, and it may drive people nuts. But I think because offenses now see fourth down as maybe a go for it down, it doesn't mean that they need to convert all the yardage on first down. If you look at efficiency charts tend to map downs as follows. On first down, an efficient down is one where you gain 4 or more yards. On second down, an efficient down is one where you gain half the necessary yardage to pick up a first down. And on third down, an efficient down is where you convert and make a first down. But with teams going for it more and more on fourth down, you may see more of a second down mentality applied to third downs. So for example, if I have 3rd and 6, it might not be unusual to see a team run the ball, particularly when they get out around midfield, because their thinking will be, I don't need to get all 6 yards here. I'm going to go for it on fourth down. So let me run a play where I know I can get half the yardage I need. So what's my best run play? Maybe it's power, maybe it's outside zone, whatever it might be. If I really believe I can get 3 to 4 yards and now put myself in a 4th and 2, 4th and 3, I'm going to be in good shape as opposed to throwing the ball, risking an incompletion. Now I'm in 4th and 6 and maybe I'm not so sure I want to go for it. So again, whereas third down used to be an all or nothing proposition, I have to make all the yardage necessary for a first down. The emerging trend of going for it on 4th down may change the thinking on third down. So if it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, and your favorite team's got the ball near midfield and they run an outside zone play for 4 yards, don't get bent out of shape. Why did they run that? You can't get a first down running outside zone on 3rd and 7. Because if they got 4 yards against a light box, because the defense is probably playing the safeties high, expecting pass, and they put themselves in 4th and 3 on the plus 47 yard line, they're going to go for it. I think that'll be an emerging trend. All right, another emerging trend that we'll see in football in 2025, increased use of 12 personnel offense. If you're unfamiliar with how personnel groupings are labeled, the first number represents the number of running backs on the field. The second number represents the number of tight ends on the field. There is no third number representing the number of wide receivers. There have to be 5 skill position players, not counting the quarterback. So just fill in the missing blank. 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, and then 3 wide receivers. That gets you to the 5 skill positions you need. That is the dominant personnel grouping in the NFL, and it's been that way for nearly 2 decades now. When I was growing up, the NFL was a 12 and 21 personnel league. You had 2 wide receivers on the field. And you either had some combination of 1 running back and 2 tight ends or 2 running backs and 1 tight end. But when spread offenses became all the rage in the early 2000s, it opened up the game and the NFL transitioned and became an 11 personnel team. They removed a tight end or a running back and they put another wide receiver on the field. Well, that affected defenses, as you might imagine, which had been, these 4-3 or these 3-4 base teams with 7 big first and second level players on the field. Defensive linemen and linebackers, but now suddenly you had 3 wide receivers and defenses were getting mismatched with their linebackers trying to cover receivers. So very, very quickly, defenses began to transition into these sub packages, these 4-2-5s or 2-4-5s, where you had 5 defensive backs. And that's been the norm for a long time on the defensive side of the ball. Sub-package defense as base defense, nickel and dime defensive packages. But offenses are getting smart. Offenses are beginning to realize, hey, with all these rosters on defenses carrying lighter linebackers and extra defensive backs, if we start going heavy again, now we'll have a mismatch. I mean, everything is cyclical. Everything comes back around. Matthew McConaughey, True Detective, Season 1. Time is a flat circle. It comes back around. And so in 2024, we saw the NFL teams use 12 personnel at a 30% clip, 30.3% of the time. NFL offenses were in 12 personnel. That was the highest since 2013, highest in over a decade. And I think the reason is because, 1, it's a nice counter to all the sub-package 5D back personnel groupings defenses are playing. And 2, tight ends have just gotten so good, so versatile, so athletic, that it's now a mismatch when offenses go 12 personnel because you get these unbelievably athletic tight ends that can get down the seam, run crossers, run the deep over route, catch the ball in just about from any position on the field, but also are still physical enough that they can block, maybe not all of them on the front side of plays, but certainly on the back sides of plays. Because of that, I think you're going to see more and more 12 personnel. I think we will see the usage of 12 personnel get closer to around 35%, or certainly over a third of the time, which would be the highest since way back in 2005, which was the last year that 11 personnel was not the norm in the NFL. And by the way, I'm going to use this as a segue real quick to promote tomorrow's show. Because tomorrow on my Whiteboard Wednesday show, my guest is Ben Troop, former All-American, first-team All-American tight end at the University of Florida, played for Steve Spurrier and Ron Zook, second-round draft pick of the Tennessee Titans, played 5 years in the NFL for Tennessee, Tampa Bay. Really fascinating conversation with him on the show tomorrow about the evolution of the tight end position. Man, he tells some great stories. He's a really entertaining guest. I was fascinating just to listen to him talk about his career, but also about the multiple ways in which tight ends are used in the modern game. So definitely tune into tomorrow's show. That's really going to be an interesting one. All right, here's a third trend. Speaking of tight ends, I think we're going to see more wham schemes being used in the NFL. I've noticed more and more of them. And I was watching Monday night, last night's game between Cincinnati and Washington, and I saw the Commanders run a couple nice wham schemes. If you're not familiar, wham is a trap play. But rather than trap a lineman with an offensive lineman, rather than the traditional guard trap where the guard pulls, and everybody, like, let's say you're 3-tech defensive tackle who's lined up on the shoulder of the offensive guard. Everybody fans away from him or blocks away from him. And the guard on the opposite side of the football pulls and traps him. You try to get that defensive tackle to run up the field, and then wham, you come in from the side and you ear hole him, and your back runs right up the void there. Wham's a different type of trap, whereby you're still fanning away from an unblocked interior defender, usually that 3-tech, but now the trap's coming from outside. It's coming from like the H-back or the second tight end who's just off the ball, probably lined up outside the tackle box. And he's coming from outside and whamming, trapping, just the way that, they use the term wham when it's done by a fullback or an H-back, whamming that interior defensive lineman. And we're seeing more and more. Wham crunch, which is it has a sucker trap on one side and a wham block on the other side, is a really hot, trendy play in the NFL. So if you're watching games and you see these quick hitting runs where it looks like the H-back came down and blocked an interior defender, it's probably some kind of wham scheme. And we're seeing more and more of those. And why are we seeing more and more of those? Because we're seeing more and more 12 personnel, tight ends on the field. The ability of those tight ends to move around formations and be used in a variety of ways. All right, let's go off the field now. Ready? Let's talk about a couple. I mean, these are both a little, a little different. They're not scheme. It's not the kind of stuff that I usually weigh in on. But what the heck? Why not? I'm going to talk about a fashion trend and a betting trend. All right, real quick. A fashion trend or a couple fashion trends for 2025. One, mismatched cleats. I noticed that earlier in the preseason. I noticed a couple guys wearing mismatched cleats. They had a cleat on that was one color and another that was another color. Team colors, but still mismatched. And I was like, that's weird. And then I saw an ad. Maybe the phone was listening to me. I don't know. It's got a weird, it's a weird way of you're talking about something and then some ad related to your conversation pops up. But I saw an ad on my phone for a new line of Nike cleats, the Kobe Grinch cleat, which is a mismatched cleat. And I was like, oh, this must be a thing now. Guys are going to the mismatched cleat. I mean, obviously the marketing of football fashion is a big deal. Why do all these teams go to the alternate uniform? Well, because they're trying to sell more jerseys. You've got everybody buys the home jersey, they buy the away jersey. Well, now they're going to buy the throwback jersey, or they're going to buy the alternate jersey, or the whiteout jersey, the color rush jersey. The merchandising of fashion in not just the football world, but in all sports and all things really, is fairly brilliant. And I think this is another example, and I think you'll see enough players do it, so it'll probably catch on. There'll probably be a bunch of little kids running around at the peewee football level with mismatched cleats because they saw, like Jamar Chase do it or something like that. Another one will be stylized eye black. We're already seeing some of that. You got Aiden Hutchinson of the Lions wears that like full warrior paint. He looks like the Ultimate Warrior from the WWE. And Saquon Barkley's got like the full face strip. Rather than having the two little face strips, he's got one that goes all the way across the bridge of his nose. Other guys have the face strips where they write little messages on them. That's becoming a way to kind of personalize your persona, right? You get to put your little message out there, or you get to add your little touch. I mean, these guys, they love to add their little touch to what they're doing from a fashion perspective. It's been around a long time. It's just changed. When I was playing football, taping your cleats was a big deal. Everybody would tape their cleats, and people love to do that. Belly shirts was a big deal. You wanted to tuck your shirt in under your shoulder pads, under your breastplate, so you could show off your abs, or if you're a lineman, your lack of abs. And it's just a new way to do your thing. You be you, and you're going to see a lot of that on the football field. And I'll end with this: a betting trend. I'm going to delve into Pez's world. My buddy Pez, who's on the show every Friday for the Hot Route. He's one of the best prognosticators in the business. Pez's picks killed it last year, over 60% in the NFL. So I'm dipping into his territory. But I read this the other day and I thought, oh, that's a fascinating trend. If you're betting college football and you get a game where the service academies are playing each other, Army, Navy, Air Force, bet the under. Bet the under when the service academies are playing each other. Because in the last 21 college football seasons, games in which the service academies have played each other, betting the under in total points, the under has hit in total points 46 out of 60 times. If you bet the under in every one of those games over the last 21 years, you would have gone 46, 12, and 2. Games in which the service academies play each other are low scoring. Why is that? I think it's because they for so many of those years, they ran the same stuff. They were all running triple option, some kind of that under center, triple options, a little bit of wishbone, dive option. They were one of the few teams, I should say, in the country doing it. And they did it because, they can't recruit just logistically as service academy players. They can't recruit the 315-pound linemen that the Ohio States and the Michigans can get. So they have to find ways to compensate to play against major competition. And those double wing read option offenses were a good way to do it because of the blocking schemes, the wedge schemes, et cetera, et cetera. And they're some of the only ones who do it, and they know how to defend it, and they're really good at defending it. Now, Navy's moving out of that a little bit. Navy's moving into a little bit more of a spread. So it'll be really interesting to see if this trend changes. But for now, it's a pretty good lock. 46, 12, and 2 on the under in Service Academy games over the last 21 seasons. So those are the hot trends to look for in football in 2025. Conservative third downs, 12 personnel offense, wham schemes, personalized eye black, mismatched cleats, and betting the under in Service Academy games. As Pez would say, lock it up. All right, that's our Tuesday show. Tomorrow, again, I think it's a great show. I've already done the interview. I think it came out great. I mean, if you want some great stories about, what was like to play at the University of Florida under guys like Steve Spurrier and Ron Zook, or what it's like being an NFL tight end, tune in tomorrow because Ben Troop does a phenomenal job of hashing it all out for you. All right, that's our Tuesday show. Hope everybody has a great day, and tune in tomorrow. Take care, everybody.